I had just been drugged. That fact registered to me almost instantly. Dear Father Yah, hold your servant, please, Abba Yah. I have been so foolish on this night. I got that prayer in right before my nerves began to unravel like thread. Layla watched me as we walked down the hall to the foyer. She saw the change come over me. You lied to me, I told her. Yeah, but you feel better, don't you? What did you give me? Oh, just a Valium. Then she turned and glided into the foyer ahead of me. All right, Solo, she's ready. I thought maybe I should be feeling real nervous at this moment, because Solomon was about to see me in this getup for the first time. But for the life of me, I didn't. I didn't glide into the foyer like Layla, but I did manage to turn the corner without tripping on my heels. Solomon was looking at some mail. He looked up as I came in, and I knew instantly that he thought I looked amazing. He let the mail slide through his fingers to fall back on the entryway table. Then he put his hand over his chest, where he petted it, all the while looking at me as if I was the rarest sight to be seen. Damn, baby. Stormy, you look so good. Damn, Layla, talk to me Monday about a raise. Yes, sir, she said, going to get her coat from the couch in back of me. You're a lucky girl, she spoke to me quietly as she passed. See you Monday, boss. And then she was gone. Her crew had left almost 10 minutes ago. Lucky girl, she called me. Why? Well, because Solomon stood in front of me, wearing a 3-piece white suit. On his feet was a pair of Italian leather white boots. I know that because he once told me that he only wore handmade Italian leather boots whenever he wore boots that were in Timberlands. He wore a black button-up shirt underneath it, but the top 2 buttons were undone so that his tattoo peeked out the top. His locks lay perfectly around his shoulders, his lining around his head and beard fresh and tight, as if he was fresh from the barber. In his ear was a diamond stud. The cufflinks in his suit were diamonds as well. I smiled. We match, I told him. He returned my smile. Yeah, baby, we match. So you ready, he asked. I nodded. Yeah, just let me get my coat. It was still on the couch where I had thrown it earlier. I picked it up and slid into it. When I turned around, Solomon was frowning. Nah, that ain't gonna work, is it? I looked down and laughed. I had this coat since I was like in 8th grade. It was dark green with a big hood that was lined with some kind of hair. Ema used to make fun of me and say it was dog fur. This was a good find in the thrift store for the time. Shoot, it's still in great shape after like 5 years. But it looked comical with the sparkly dress I was wearing. Come here, he said. I covered my smile with my hand as I walked to where he stood in front of the foyer mirror. He slid my coat off my shoulders and hung it in the closet. And then he came out of the closet with a plush, hooded white fur cape and slid it on my shoulders. I closed my eyes as it caressed my skin. I had never felt anything like it. It felt like I was wearing a cloud. When I opened them, my gaze connected with Solomon's in the mirror. He wanted me. It was clear. And if I told the truth to myself, I wanted him too, badly. I have never seen a woman as beautiful as you, he said. I smiled. You know what, brother? You ain't bad looking yourself. He licked his lips and chuckled. Our car is waiting downstairs, he said. I felt like a princess as I walked through the lobby of Solomon's building. Everybody stared at us. A man was talking on his phone, but as I passed, he lowered it to watch me pass. I giggled. Wow. Stormy, Mr. Manning, Roger said as he opened the door for us. Evening, Roger, Solomon said as he passed. I turned to look back at him, and he gave me the Google eyes. I laughed. It didn't even upset me that Nico was standing at the side of the huge limo holding the door open for us. And right then and there I knew that volumes was of the devil. I sat across from Solomon in the limo and tried not to blush as he continued to stare at me. "I'm gonna have to kill somebody tonight," he said. I laughed, but I stopped when I see he didn't even crack a smile. "Oh, don't be like that. Not tonight." He grinned then. "I can't make no promises." "Well, do your best, okay?" He moved to the edge of his seat. His long legs were stretched on both sides of me. He gently picked up my right hand. "I've got another gift for you." I shook my head. "Please, Solomon, you have done so much already." "Nah, baby. If you ask, I try to give you the whole world." I laughed at him. "You ain't Yah, brother, but for the record, I do want to thank you for everything that you've done for me. If I don't get another chance to tell you, know that you couldn't have bestowed your kindness on a more appreciative person. You have given and shown me things that I thought I would never have seen. You've taken a little girl from the ghetto and showed her what it's like to eat of the finer things in life. And, well, that's a blessing and a memory that I will always have." He leaned down so that his elbows rested on his legs. This brought him very close to me. He didn't speak for a while. He just stared into my eyes, if he was trying to read my soul. "Makati," he said, so low that if I wasn't looking at his lips, I wouldn't have heard it. "You talking like you're going to leave me." I opened my mouth, but then I shut it again. What was I to say to that? I didn't want to lie to him. Tears came to my eyes, but I couldn't let them drop. Instead, I smiled. "Why didn't you tell me it was your birthday?" I asked, leaning closer so that our lips were only inches apart. He looked at me with wolf eyes. He knew that I was changing the subject, and he didn't like it. That little muscle ticked furiously in his handsome cheek. I reached up and I gently scratched his beard. Instantly, his tension fled. He looked down as he kissed my palm, taking my hand in his again. "Tonight is not about me," he said. "It's about us." He reached inside his jacket and came out with a bracelet. He put it on my wrist and fastened the little clip. I sucked in my breath. It was simply beautiful. "It's white gold," he told me, as I turned it in the light to see it better. The bracelet was really light for its size. You know, it was one of those wide bracelets, and it had some words written on it, but it wasn't English. "It's Hebrew," Solomon said. "Hebrew? What does it say?" I asked, taken aback by the beauty of the bracelet. "Will you accept it?" he asked instead. I bit my lip as I thought about it. Hadaria was taking me to the bus station Monday, and I was leaving. And of course, I wasn't going to take any of the gifts he had bought me, including Floyd. This bracelet I could have, and keep something to remind me of our time together. I nodded as those dang tears came back to my eyes. With a shaking hand, I wiped them away before they ruined my makeup. Boo for Layla's volume. It did nothing to stop the pain I felt at what I had to do. "Yeah, I'll accept it," I told him. He smiled and kissed me deeply. He put his hands around my waist and leaned back in his seat, lifted me so that I straddled his lap. I took his face in my hand and I deepened the kiss. Ooh, I was going to miss this. His kisses, his hands on my body. I wrapped my arms around his neck and pulled him as close as I could get him. The car came to a stop and our kiss ended, but neither of us moved, sat staring in each other's eyes. My arms wrapped around his neck, his around my waist. Neither of us wanted to let go of the other. "I think I messed up your lipstick," he whispered. I nodded. "That's okay. It's just gloss. I've got more," I whispered back. He lifted me so that I was sitting in my own seat. With hands that shook, I opened the little handbag that came with the outfit, and I took out a little tube of glittering gloss. He watched me put on a fresh coat. "Do you know I have dreams about your lips?" I smiled. You nasty. He dipped his head, coming for my mouth again. I sat back out of reach. Big boy, I just redid my gloss. Later, I'm going to take great pleasure in undoing all of this. He outlined my body with his hands, for he lightly tapped on the window. The door opened and he stepped out. He reached his hand in and helped me out. Oh my, I said as I looked upstairs that led up to a mansion. No, mansion was wrong. It was too big to be a mansion. Maybe a small palace? Yeah, that was more like it. There was a red carpet that led from where we stood up to the door. Both sides were lit up with lights. As he led me up them, I felt like I was going to the Grammys or something. What is this place? I asked. He hesitated, looking down at me. It's my mother's house. Are you serious? I whispered. He chuckled. I'm pretty sure. I grew up here. My mouth dropped open. We're supposed to be under the curses, I said under my breath. What you say? He asked. Oh, this is an amazing house. Right then, the doors flew open, and a woman that could easily be Lena Horne's twin stood there, shaking her head at Solomon. Son, how can you be late for your birthday party? He exhaled. I felt the tension filling his body. Because, Mother, I told you I didn't want you to do this. He leaned down and kissed her on the cheek. Do what? Honor the birth of my only son? She put her hand on her hip, the red dress she wore sparkling like fire in the candlelit entrance. Mom, this is Stormy. Stormy, this is my mother Margaret. She looked at me before playfully hitting Solomon on his chest. Solomon, don't joke with Mommy. I'm tired. I had a busy day. She looked at me. What is your name, dear? Ouch. I looked away to cover my embarrassment. Ouch. Ma, I swear, if you start this shit, I will leave right now. She looked up shocked. What did I do? Putting her hand on her chest, she looked close to tears. Her name is Stormy, Solomon said between clenched teeth. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. I thought you were messing with me. How was I supposed to know you were serious? Maybe because I said, Ma, this is Stormy, my mother. He spat down at her. But before they can argue any further, a big booming voice filled the foyer. Grandson! The man I saw on the picture the other day at Solomon's office was walking toward us to embrace him. Papa, how are you? Good, my boy. But enough about me. Who is this rare flower you have brought to mingle with us mere mortals? He took my hand and brought it up to his lips, lightly kissing it. This is Stormy. Stormy, this is my grandfather, Cornelius Simpson III. Come now, you can call me Papa. I laughed and squeezed his hand, so glad his greeting was warmer than Margaret's. Please do an old man the honor of letting me lead you into the ball. The honor is mine, Papa. He held his arm out for me, and I gently wrapped mine around it. The way to the ballroom was lit by candles. When we got close to two men dressed in matching uniform, they opened the door and the music filled my ear. I bit my lip to keep my mouth from opening at the sight that greeted me. Men and women dressed to impress spun around the dance floor. This room too was lit by candlelight, the dim chandelier lending only a little glow. A live band played. Oh goodness, I said when I saw who was singing. What is it, dear? Papa asked, looking down at me. That's T. Kelly. He chuckled. Yes, he's a good friend of Solomon's, I believe. He looked over at his grandson, who came to stand next to me. He's an associate. I wouldn't call him a friend. Here, Stormy, let me check your cape. He slid it off my shoulders and handed it to a man in a tux that stood there waiting for it. Thank you, Billings. My pleasure, sir. Can I get you and the lady a beverage? Billings asked. Yes, scotch for me. Solomon looked at me. You want anything? I shook my head, nervous. I think the volumes were wearing off because the butterflies were beginning to wake up in my tummy. The scotch will be fine, Solomon said to Billings, who bowed. Very good, sir, he said before walking away. May I have your attention? A honey voice came from the mic. I looked up to the stage, and Solomon's mom stood next to Kale's, holding the mic. She wore that red dress flawlessly. It was as if, when they coined the saying, Lady in Red, they had been talking about her all along. She radiated in the candle glow. She's radiant. Nah, baby, you are. Look around. Everybody's looking at you. I blinked and looked away from the stage. I hadn't even realized I said that out loud. But I did as Solomon said and looked around, and sure enough, almost every head in the place was turned in our direction. I shivered. Papa patted my hand. Don't worry, sweetheart. You are the belle of the ball. Attention, she called again, until all eyes were on her. I'd just like to take this time to thank everyone for coming out tonight to celebrate this great occasion. May I present the king and my son, Solomon. She gestured our way. The spotlight landed on us. Solomon just nodded and lifted his scotch in the air as everybody turned to him with applause. Those that were sitting stood. He nodded his head again. Now, she said, drawing the spotlight back to her, there's waiters and waitresses around going with our special cocktail. Please eat, drink, and help me celebrate my baby's birth. I looked up at Solomon, and judging by his eye roll and his exhale of breath, he was not impressed with her introduction. Solomon, my boy, how are you? An older white man in a black tux said as he approached us. Mayor Robbins, I'm good. How about you? I heard the missus has put you on a new, shall we say, diet. All three of the men chuckled. I see your grandfather here has been making up things about me again. But, he looked at me and his eyes twinkled. Who do we have here? He picked up my hand to kiss it. But before he could, Solomon slid his big hand to cover mine and gently took it away from the mayor's, who looked up at him shocked at first, before he smiled and snapped his fingers. I had almost tasted heaven, he said. Not today, my friend, Solomon replied. Come now, Robbins. Let's leave these kids to mingle with folks their own age. They didn't come here to party with us old people. Cornelius winked at Solomon as he led the mayor away. But the mayor took that time to smile at me. I smiled back and waved him away. Listen to me, Stormy, Solomon said, putting his hand around my waist and pulling me close, so close that his mouth was touching my ear. Are you listening? I nodded, confused. He was so angry. I could feel it pouring out of him. It is very important that you stay away from any of these men here tonight. I was not joking in the car. I will kill a motherfucker. I looked up at him. He frustratingly blew out his breath before correcting himself. I will put somebody in the grave if they touch you. Do you understand me? He pleaded with me with his eyes to understand. Just then, Nico appeared out of nowhere. He stood off to the left of Solomon. Even though he was dressed in a tux, it was still very clear to all what he was. I looked up at Solomon, and I gently put my hands on both sides of his cheeks. My fingers slightly massaged his beard. Do you know what your name means? I asked him, as I stood there, looking up at him, his heated gaze staring deep into my soul. Everybody else just faded to black, like the first night I met him. He shook his head. It means Shalom. I gently scratched his beard. Shalom, my king. He leaned in and kissed my lips hard. What have you done to me? He asked, putting his forehead against mine. Okay, lovebirds, break it up now. With a smile on her face, Margaret grabbed my hand and separated us. She linked her arms with mine. Come, Stormy, I want to introduce you to Prince of Murneth. Solomon, do something about that thug you have for a shadow. He's making our guests uncomfortable. As she glided past Nico, she held her head up high in the air like he was nothing. He just smiled, shaking his own head. I looked back at Solomon with pleading eyes. He lifted his scotch to me. Dang it, he was going to leave me with his ice queen. Okay, Storm, you can do this. We approached a man who was clearly Middle Eastern, judging by the way he was dressed. Prince Ali, how are you, darling? Margaret cooed as we came to stop at his small party of people. Honored to be here. The young king looks very well, he said, looking at Solomon. I frowned. Why would this man be calling Solomon king? I know people sometimes called him King Solomon, but this was a prince. Why would he call Solomon a king? Something was off here. Yes, he does, doesn't he? I am so very proud of what he's grown to be, even though his father abandoned us. She dabbed at an imaginary tear with her napkin. Oh, man. Solomon's mother was Drama Queen with a capital D. Everybody in the small group looked at Solomon where he stood, so tall and handsome, as a couple more men approached him, judging by their expensive tux. They were no doubt worldly important. But something in their eyes brought me up short. Although they smiled at him, there was something else in their eyes. In fact, it had been in the mayor's eyes as well. I turned to look at the prince, and sure enough, it was there in his eyes. Was that fear? Yes, it was. They were afraid of Solomon. I frowned. What the world was going on here? And right then, the hairs on the back of my neck began to rise. I looked up and my gaze clashed with Solomon's. He watched me with such an intensity that it seemed to consume me. Although the man talked to him, he didn't even try to hide the fact that he watched me, reminding me of a hungry wolf. That was it. My Solomon was gone. In his place was that wolf. It was no other way to describe it. A shiver raced down my spine.